so it is time. It is time for me to finally pick up Iron Flame after it being on my bookshelf for over a year. And a character that I thought we were never going to see again comes back. He's right. You and Ryerson bicker like you've been married 50 years and neither of you wants to do the dishes. So that chapter just like tore out my heart. And my heart is just left behind in that chapter. Hi, I'm Ashley and welcome back to my channel and to the start of another reading vlog. So today's video is going to be a reading vlog of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Onyx Storm, all by Rebecca Yarros. So, I have read Fourth Wing before. I read this in March of 2023, so it's been over a year since I read this. So I've really been wanting to do a reread of this because when I first read this, I very much enjoyed it. I have a reading vlog up on this one if you want to know my full thoughts about it. But I very much enjoyed it, but I wasn't sure if I want to give it a 4 or a 5 because my main concern was I wasn't sure how it would hold up over time. Because a lot of my enjoyment of this did come from not knowing what was going to happen next. And so now that I have read it and I know what happens, I'm curious to see if I still really enjoy it during a reread. And so we are going to figure that out in this video. I will say that while a lot of my enjoyment did come from wanting to see what was going to happen next, I still also really much enjoy the depiction of the dragons in here and also the romance as well. So my reread of this will determine whether I give this 4 stars or 5 stars. And then after I reread this, I am going to hop into Iron Flame. And I actually have not read this yet, even though it's been sitting on my bookshelf since November 2023. And I'm slightly afraid to read this because I saw like a lot of negative reviews of this when it first came out of people who were disappointed by this book. But since then, I have seen some other reviews of people who like actually did enjoy this, so I am looking forward to going into this. I'm just gonna keep my expectations kind of low. And then the third book, Onyx Storm, is coming out on January 21st, so I already have that one pre-ordered, so then when I get that one, I will read that one, and hopefully that one will be really, really good. And so I'm gonna start with reading Fourth Wing. I won't give too much of my thoughts on this since I already did a whole video where I did that the first time. I'm gonna start with my reread of Fourth Wing, and I will let you know how I feel about this reread. Hi, so it's now Thursday, January 9th, and I'm here for reading update, which is that I have finished my reread of Fourth Wing, and I'm happy to report that I enjoyed my reread of it just as much as I did my first read of it. And I can now say with confidence that I love this book and it definitely gets 5 stars for me. And I will say like my reread of it hit just a little bit differently because I know my worry was that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much for a reread because a lot of my enjoyment from my first time reading it came from not knowing what was going to happen. But even though I knew what was going to happen this time around, I still very much enjoyed seeing things unfold. And also since it has been like over a year since I last read Fourth Wing, I didn't remember every single little detail. And I will say like the first time I read it, the first 100 pages of Fourth Wing were just like a pure adrenaline rush. And while I didn't get like that same feeling this time around, like that same intense adrenaline rush, I did feel a little bit. And I noticed though, like during my reread, since I knew what was going to happen, like I noticed some things that I didn't notice like my first time around reading this. And one of the things I did note this time around is when Violet is going across the parapet and she's reciting like the history of the world to herself because it calms her nerves. I thought that was just like a really clever way to like do some world building while also showing a part of Violet's personality. And I don't think like I really recognized that the first time I read the book because I was just so focused on Violet making it across the parapet. Also, this time while reading Fourth Wing, from the very first scene with Violet's mother, I just hated her. I was like, she is the worst mother ever, and I don't remember having like this intense like dislike of her when I first read the book. I didn't like her from page 1, from that very first scene when her and Violet are meeting in the office. And maybe it has a little bit to do with the 2 books I read before this had parent figures who were very wholesome and very much cared about their children. So the parents from those books contrasted very much with Violet's mother. And then one of my favorite things during this reread was just the whole relationship between Violet and Xaden and their romance. I just love them so much, and I love seeing their interactions and seeing their relationship grow. And I just love that first scene when they're alone for the first time, when Violet goes to pick her poison berries. It just, their banter and their chemistry is just so good. And I just also love Xaden as a character too. And then my second favorite thing during this reread, which was also one of my favorite things when I read it for the first time, was the dragons. I just love the dragons so much. I love the whole dragon-rider relationship, and I especially love Violet's dragons. And I feel like the dragon and the rider relationship very much reminds me of like the relationship between the dragons and riders in Aragon. But one thing that does set Fourth Wing apart from that is the signet powers that they get. And I just find the idea of the signet powers just really cool. So yeah, those are all my thoughts on my Fourth Wing reread. I am now excited to hop into Iron Flame. Still a little apprehensive, but more excited now after my reread of Fourth Wing. Okay, so it is time. It is time for me to finally pick up Iron Flame after it being on my bookshelf for over a year. I'm going to go finally start this, and I will be back when I have some thoughts. So there's a quote here that I just really like that I want to read. So on page 16 it says, "Because love at its root is hope. Hope for tomorrow, hope for what could be. Hope that the someone you've entrusted your everything to will cradle and protect it. And hope that shit is harder to kill than a dragon." I noticed this like in the first book too, but Fourth Wing had like so many quotable moments. And again, we're getting that already on page 16. So we're finally getting to find out what happened to Andrana at the end of the first book, that something was hinted at. And it's saying her scales are now black, which makes me sad. I want her to stay gold. But it also says dragons are only gold feathered as hatchlings. Hi, so it's been a few days since my last update. It's now Sunday, January 12th, and I am back with a reading update. So I have made it to page 301, chapter 34. And I just have to say, shame on me for not starting this sooner, because so far I've been enjoying this just as much as I enjoyed Fourth Wing. And so far this book has the same elements of the first book that I loved. It's just as exciting and action-packed as the first one was. And like the first one, it's giving me that edge of the seat feeling, because even though Violet and her classmates are now second years, still no one is safe. Anyone could die at any time, and that has already been super apparent in this. So the harshness and the brutality that was in the first book definitely continues on over into the second book. So as second years, they have this course they have to take called RSC, the Rider Survival Course. And this course is just brutal. And a part of this course is surviving like interrogation sessions. And that just seems so cruel. And when I read about that, I was like, I could never be a dragon rider. Like, I would break. I would not be able to do that. And then also, like, adding to, like, the no one is safe feeling and keeping me on the edge of my seat. There has also been assassination attempts in this book. Violet and the others who were in that battle at the end of the first book, they know things that they're not supposed to know, and people know that they know these things, so now they're all walking targets, and so they're just being picked off one by one. And so that really gives you the feeling that no one is safe, and it's just like keeping me on edge because I'm like, no, I don't want anyone else to die, but I know that it could possibly happen because this is that type of book where it takes no prisoners, anyone could die. And additionally, this book has also had twists and turns that just keep me flipping the pages and wanting to know what's going to happen next. One twist in particular was on page 239 when a character that I thought we were never going to see again comes back. And I'm still wondering like exactly what is up with them. Like, it seems very suspicious and I don't trust the whole situation at all. And another part of this book that I'm very much enjoying is that while the first book focused a lot on Violet and Xaden's relationship, this book still has that, but it also focuses more on her relationship with her friends, which I'm really liking. And I'm really enjoying getting to see their relationships grow. And also, like the first book, I am loving the dragons in here. Tarn, I just love him and his whole like overprotective like grandfather personality. And like the first book, the back and forth between him and Violet have just been gold. And then the developments going on with Ondarna are just super fascinating, and I'm just can't wait to see more of her. And then since Violet and the others are in their second year now, that means there's a whole new group of first years. And there are 2 first years in particular that I am very interested in and invested in them. And I'm sure if you read this, you know who those 2 first years are. And one other thing that I want to mention is I know in the first book that I was very harsh on Violet's mom and I just found her whole behavior awful. Well, in this one, we do get some moments that show that she does actually care for Violet, and so maybe she is not as bad as I thought she was. And I also want to mention that I know I saw in some reviews that people said that Xaden and Violet just argue too much. And they do argue a lot in this book, but so far I feel like it hasn't been too much. And I understand exactly why they're arguing. Like, they have every right to be arguing as much as they are right now. But that being said, I am only halfway through this book, so we will see if my feelings change in the next 300 pages. So those are all my thoughts for now, but before I let you go, I did get some bookish mail that is Fourth Wing related, so I thought we could open this together. So it's a metal Fourth Wing bookmark. I don't have any Fourth Wing bookmarks, and I saw this on Amazon and thought it was super cute, so I decided to get it. And there's a little book charm on the end. It says one of the famous Fourth Wing quotes. It says, "There's nowhere in existence you could go that I wouldn't find you violence." So I'm gonna put this into Iron Flame, and I'm definitely gonna be using this when Onyx Storm comes out as well. And I will link down below where I got this from in case you're interested. Good morning. So it is Tuesday, January 21st, and that means it's Onyx Storm release day, so happy Onyx Storm release day. And so I did finish Iron Flame, and I ended up loving it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about my thoughts right now, because I just want to make this a quick update. Because this morning I am going to head off to Target because I happened to get today off from work. I didn't ask for it off, it just like happened, so I'm going to take advantage of that. And I did pre-order Onyx Storm on Amazon. It does say that it's still supposed to be delivered today, but I don't trust that. And I learned a couple weeks ago that Target has their own exclusive edition, so I'm going to go there this morning and see if I can get that. So I'm going to head there now, so I will be back later to talk more about my thoughts on this, and also hopefully have Onyx Storm in my possession too. So I'm back. I have had an adventure-filled day. It is now almost 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So I went to Target this morning, did not find the special edition. I think I got there too late because I got there like 30 minutes after they opened. And I was going to get there like right when they opened, but then this morning it was really cold out and it was still dark at that time, so I was afraid of black ice, so I waited until it was light out so I could see the road and any potential ice patches. So I didn't get it. I was a little sad, not gonna lie. But it is what it is. And they had Onyx Storm there, but it was only the regular edition that didn't have the sprayed and stenciled edges. So I was kind of like, it's not really worth it for me to get that because I have the one on pre-order from Amazon that has the sprayed and stenciled edges. So why would I buy the regular one? And like I mentioned earlier, I did not trust the delivery date with the Amazon one because this morning it said it was being delivered today still, but it hadn't shipped yet, which was highly suspicious. And I was right to be suspicious because my delivery date has now changed to this Friday. And so then after that, I went to the library because I needed to renew my library card because my library card expired, which I didn't even know library cards expire, but apparently they do. So I did that, and near the library I go to, Walmart isn't that far away. So I was like, you know what? I'm in the area. I'm going to go to Walmart and see if they have Onyx Storm. So I went there. They had it. They had 3 copies with the dragon edges, but all 3 of them were damaged. And I was looking at them because I was like, well, maybe I can switch a book cover to a hardback and make like a complete undamaged copy, but like all of the hardbacks were damaged in some way on them. And I was like, I can't do it because that would bother me. So I didn't, and I know even though there's a chance that Amazon could send me a book and it could have damage, because I feel like a lot of times when they send books, there's some sort of damage on them, which is why I usually prefer ordering from Barnes & Noble. But anyways, that was my adventure today. I have decided that I am actually just going to wait until next Tuesday to start Onyx Storm because of the way my work schedule is. So I'm work today, but after today, my next day off is next Tuesday. So even if I did start Onyx Storm later today on my Kindle, I wouldn't really have that much time to read because my husband gets out of work at 4, and then after today I go back to work for the rest of the week. So I won't have like lots of uninterrupted reading time. It'd just be a lot of like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. So I'm thinking it's probably better for me to wait until Tuesday. And that way I can just read uninterrupted for like the whole day. So that's what I'm going to do. So now that I've got that long ramble out of the way, let's talk about the rest of my thoughts on Iron Flame. So I am very happy to say that I loved this just like I loved the first book. And I'm only kind of mad at myself for not picking this up sooner. At the same time, I'm kind of happy that I didn't read it until now because of the cliffhanger that it ends on. Because now I don't have to wait very long to read the next book, whereas if I had read this earlier, I would have had to wait like a year. But I know some people had said that they thought this was too long. I personally did not think this was too long. I thought that the 600 something pages that it was the perfect length. I never got bored during reading this, so I don't feel like there was really anything unnecessary in it. But I'm also the type of reader where like I enjoy chapters with the characters having downtime, and I know some people might not like that. I will say though that during the last 40 pages, that was the first point during reading the book where I was kind of getting a little tired of Xaden and Violet arguing. Yeah, at the same time, like, I understand why they're having the arguments that they have, but, like, they're valid arguments. I especially really enjoyed the stuff that happens in chapter 34 after they go on their little field trip to the archives. That, from page 301 to 344, stuff that happened during those pages was crazy. It was like, I couldn't put the book down when I was reading those parts, and actually, I was forced to put the book down because I read chapter 34 while I was on lunch break at work one day, and I was like, oh, I have enough time to read this chapter and finish it, and I did, but it ended on that stupid cliffhanger. It was like the worst chapter ending of the book so far, and I was like, oh no, what did I just do? Like, I shouldn't have read that because now I can't read until after work or the next day because I was closing that night at work, so I wasn't going to get home until late. So that was kind of a mistake. But I ended up picking it back up the next day and just reading that whole part from there until page 344. that whole section 301 to 334 was a whole adrenaline rush, and it reminded me very much of how I felt while reading the first 100 pages of Fourth Wing. And then the final battle in here was also super exciting, but I was also very nervous for it because we all know what happened at the end of the first battle, what happened during that battle, and I was like, I don't want something else to happen like that. I was like, I don't want someone else to die that I really care about because my heart won't be able to take it. So that whole final battle made me really nervous, but I am happy that no one that I loved died in that battle. And another thing I really liked about this book is how we got to see more of Violet's mom, and we got to see like more of her and like different sides of her that made me kind of feel a little bit sympathetic towards her character. Because in the first book, I feel like it's really easy just to not like her because you only see her very briefly in that book, and every time she's in that book is pretty much just her shutting down Violet and her just being mean to Violet, and she pretty much sentences her to death by just sending her off to the Rider's Quadrant. But in this one, you get to see more of the position that she's in, and you get to see that she does actually care about Violet. Kind of in a similar vein, I love how we got to see Brendan, Mira, and Violet all together and how we got to see their dynamic. So yeah, those are all my thoughts on Iron Flame. I am super excited to jump into Onyx Storm once I have it in my hands. So I'm going to end this video here for now, and I'll be back once I have possession of Onyx Storm and start reading. First Xaden entrance of the novel, and it was epic as always. I got this line on page 23 that Xaden says to Violet. It's just, it's so good. I'm gonna read it. So he says, I could reach the rank of Maven, leave armies of dark wielders against everyone we care for, and watch every vein in my body turn red as I channel all the power in the continent, and I would still love you. What I did doesn't change that. I'm not sure anything can. That's just like the sort of romance in my fantasy books that I love. So I just made it to chapter 3, and I just love this little paragraph here. So it was written by Violet's mother, and it says, sometimes I worry about Violet. She has your sharp wit, quick mind, and steadfast heart paired with my bullheaded tenacity. When she finally and truly gives that heart, I fear it will overrule the other gifts you've given her, and logic will cede its voice to love. And if her first 2 licenses are any indication of what we might expect, God's help her. My love, I'm afraid our daughter has atrocious taste in med. I just love like the bond and the found family between Violet and her squad. Especially on page 62, Riddock is talking to Sawyer, who's kind of down because he lost his leg in the last book at that big battle. And so, like, he doesn't really know what his future is going to be anymore. Is he going to still be able to be a dragon rider? And Riddock says to him, "Now, I love you like a brother, and I get that you lost your leg, and we respect however you're feeling about that, but you're still one of us. You're still a rider with all the benefits and shit that come with wearing black. So with all the love in my heart, put your fucking uniform on, because we need you." I just love the friendship and the bonds between them all. It makes my heart happy. Ugh, Dane's father is the worst. He needs to, like, I don't know. He's the next one that needs to go away. And I can't believe he is now, like, taking Violet's mom's old job. Like, what? No, that's not good. Ugh. Hi, so it's Tuesday, January 28th now, and I finally started Onyx Storm this morning. So I had today off from work, so I pretty much read from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with only a short break for lunch. So I've made it to chapter 24, page 205. So I thought I would give some of my thoughts so far. So far, I'm already loving this. I know it's kind of early to say it because I'm only 200 pages in, but I am. I'm loving it. And so far, it's been like everything that I've wanted. There's just something like very special and magical about this series and these books, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is, but it gives me that feeling. And I just love the world, and I love the characters, and it very much, like, starting this one just very much gave me, like, that coming home feeling. And even though I'm only 200 pages in, so far I've already felt, like, all the emotions. I've felt giddiness, happiness, fear, anger. And even though, like, this is the third book into the series, like, Xaden and Violet's relationship and their scenes in this book they continue to make me giddy, and I've just been having a really good time with them. There's, like, sad stuff going on because with Xaden's situation at the moment, but also there's been also just some really cute and sweet scenes between them as well, and fun, like, scenes too. And I especially love, like, Xaden makes his first appearance in this book on page 20. As usual, his entrance is awesome. I just never get tired of reading about him doing cool scenes and making, like, really cool entrances. Just every single time, it just makes me giddy. And overall, I love Xaden and Violet's relationship. I love the ups, I love the downs, I just love the ride that the relationship is. And similarly, I love the relationship between Violet and her squad mates that are in her year. I just love the close-knit relationship between Violet and Ree and Soya and Riddock. Their relationship just, like, warms my heart so much. And in this book so far, there's already been, like, some great moments between them. Specifically, I really like when they're talking about the romantic relationships that they're in. And specifically, I really like the remarks that Ree and Sawyer make about Violet and Xaden's relationship. I just found it really amusing. I thought it was, like, right on the nose, and it especially, like, described their whole relationship in book 2 to a T. So I just wanted to share some lines from that scene. So the scene's on page 110, 111, and Sawyer says, "Do you give shit about whatever you have going with Tara, or the fact that Ryerson and Sorrengail fight like an old married couple?" I'm like, that's so true, they do. Made even better when Ree says, "But he's right, you and Ryerson bicker like you've been married 50 years and neither of you wants to do the dishes." Then, making it even better, we have Riddock who chimes in, "Agreed, and it's always the same fight. I'll trust you if you stop keeping secrets. It's my secret nature that attracted you. Why can't you just stay out of harm's way for 5 fucking minutes?" I'm like, that whole conversation just perfectly describes Violet and Xaden's whole relationship in the second book. And I just found it really fun that this book was poking fun at that. And I just love their dynamic. Of course, though, since I love their dynamic, I'm, like, so worried for, like, all of them. I'm like, oh my god, if one of them dies, this could be so sad. Speaking of them, Riddock has been getting more time in the spotlight in this book. So I'm happy about that because I feel like out of the group, like, he feels like the least developed to me. But at the same time, it makes me nervous because I'm like, oh my god, I hope nothing bad happens to him at the end of this book. And also I really like that we're also getting to see more of his dragon too, and his dragon's personality. And I think Taryn said like in the book somewhere like his dragon's like 20 something. So, and I feel like that's really like coming through in some of it in some of his interactions. Like he does kind of feel like just like a young adult. And then not even 100 pages into this book, crazy things already started happening and my heart was already pounding. And it was around page 80, and the things that happened, oh my god, Tarn like totally gave me a heart attack in that scene. Like I was like, oh no, what is going on? No, we're only 80 pages into the book. Like what is happening? Speaking of Tarn, the banter between him and Arndarna has just been great this book, like it was in the last book. The two of them, like every time they banter, it just always cracks me up. I really like that because I feel like their banter is like a nice break from some of the more serious stuff in the life or death moments and the brutal moments that happen in this book. And so yeah, those are all my thoughts so far. I don't really want to go into too much detail about what has been happening in the book because I don't really want to spoil things. I'm trying to keep this spoil free, so that's why I'm like vaguely mentioning things. But I am really excited to read some more because page 200, there's been some very interesting developments. And I'm really excited to see where things go. I am super nervous about what is going on with Xaden. I'm like, oh no, how is this book gonna end? Because, you know, it's gonna end on a cliffhanger, so I'm like, what is gonna happen? But I still have like about 300 pages. I think this is around 500 pages, so I still have a while till the end, so plenty of time for things to happen. So it's now around like almost 5:30, so I am gonna go now read more of this, and that's probably what I'm gonna do for the rest of the night is I'm just gonna read. So it's almost 6 o'clock, it's 5:58, so I'm about to hop into some more reading of Onyx Storm. I'm pretty much probably just gonna read this the rest of the night. So I'm on chapter 24, and I was just reading like those little tidbits that are like before the chapter actually starts, these ones, and I feel like the ones in this book have been like really good. Like there's so many I'm reading, I'm like, oh my god. And like this one too is something, it says it's unsent correspondence of General Lilith Sorrengail, so Violet's mother, and it sounds like she's writing to their father. And it says, she won't understand why you've kept her in the dark. You left too soon, left too many of your plans unfinished. Now we can only hope the bond between our daughters is strong enough to endure the paths they've chosen. They'll need each other to survive. So I really like how we're like getting these little like passages, because like Violet's mother is gone, but it still feels like we're getting more of her because of like these little passages, and we're learning more about her and Violet's father, and I'm really enjoying that. Hi, so I'm here with a reading update. It's now the next day, so it's Wednesday night, and I have read a lot since we last talked. So last night I read up to about page 370, and then this morning before I went to work and during my lunch break at work, I got to page 423, chapter 51. So I only have about 100 pages left to go before I finish this, so I wanted to give an update before I continue any further. So I am still loving this. So much has happened since my last update. They visited the islands, and I feel like all the islands, they're just all awful. I didn't like any of them. I especially did not like the island where they worship the luck god. I did not like that whole scenario that played out. And the consequences? Nope. No thank you. And also the island where they value knowledge and they're supposed to be peaceful. They were also very awful people. I feel like the only island that I didn't really mind were the island with the warriors, because at least with them you know what you're getting. They're not like hiding their true natures. Whereas like all the other people, I feel like they are wolves in sheep's clothing. And you know what the islands also remind me of? They remind me of the factions in Divergent too. I got that feeling from them. And also I feel so bad for Andrana right now. I feel so bad for her. And also just recently I found out what Violet's second signet is. So there's that secret that's been revealed. And then one thing that made me really happy is concerning Sawyer, and he finally got back onto his dragon for the first time since the end of the second book, and I felt so happy for him. And now I just hope nothing bad happens to him, because where I'm at, it seems like the final battle is about to begin. and that makes me all sorts of nervous, and I'm just super nervous for Xaden. Like, I know stuff is gonna happen, it's probably not gonna be good, and I'm just bracing my heart for all the pain that's probably going to come in these next 100 pages. And that being said, I am definitely going to finish this tonight because I need to know what's going to happen next, even though I'm super scared to find out what's going to happen next, but I need to know. So I am going to go change into comfy clothes and get reading. Oh, no, no. Oh. Chapter 61. We're getting a new perspective. Hi, so it is now Friday. I have not finished Onyx Storm yet like I was planning, but I only have 20 pages left, so I am going to finish this off this morning because I have some time where I can read uninterrupted. So I'm going to do that. And we are in the middle of the super exciting battle right now. And one of the thoughts on my mind right now is about Arik. I feel like he is hiding something because some things have been happening. He's been doing some things that make me think that he might be lying about his signet having not manifested yet. Maybe I'm just completely off the mark, but I feel like it has manifested, but he just hasn't told them the truth of what it is. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Hopefully I'll get the answers to that in these last 20 pages. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this book up, finally. This part is too sad. My eyes are turning to water. Oh my gosh, that chapter. So intense. Oh, and there's still more. Oh no. Oh, and then it looks like the last chapter is going to be, we're getting Xaden's point of view again, like we did at the end of book 1 and 2. I don't want to read it because it's going to be scary. ending. No. And now to wait for the next one. Wow, those last 20 pages were insane. Hi, so I am back. It is the next day. I did finish Onyx Storm yesterday, so I'm here with my final thoughts and to wrap up this video. So I love this book, just like I love the other two. It's getting 5 stars. The last 20 pages of this were insane. Like, insanely devastating. Chapter 63 almost made me cry. So that chapter just like tore out my heart. And my heart is just left behind in that chapter. And that chapter is also interesting because it is told from a different perspective that is not Violet's perspective. So for most of these books, we just get Violet's perspective, except near the very end. The last 2 books we have gotten a Xaden perspective at the very end of the books, and this does that. But it also does other perspectives of other characters, and I really like that. Because personally, I love multi-perspective stories. So I really like that this book did that. And I hope we get more of that in the next book. And I also feel like getting those different perspectives really made like that final battle feel more immersive. And speaking of the final pages of this book, the ending of this book was just devastating. And I was like, oh my god, what is going on? Like, the things that happen near the end at the final pages of this book just bring up so many more questions. And also, finally, I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time, but the other shoe drops on the whole Xaden situation that was going on in this entire book. And I knew it was coming, but it still was painful. I think personally the cliffhanger of this one has been the worst cliffhanger of these books so far, because personally for me it's the type of cliffhanger that bothers me the most, that causes me the most pain. So those are pretty much all my thoughts on this book. I already gave like a bunch of my thoughts throughout the book, so I'm not gonna like repeat any of that. But to end off this video on a more uplifting note, I want to share a video that randomly showed up in my YouTube feed last night. So it is a 4th Wing ambiance video. And it's one of Andarna sleeping by a fireplace. And I just thought it was the cutest thing ever and it made me smile. And I want to share it because it helped soothe my soul after the devastating ending of Onyx Storm. So it might help you out as well. And the channel this video is from is Fantasia Ambience, so I will link them down below because they also have other 4th Wing ambience videos as well. Okay, so we officially reached the end of the video. If you made it to this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!